Salaamu alaykum and greetings to you all. I'd like to start off this introduction, which is also my first podcast, with a big thank you to everyone who has been following and keeping up with this channel, especially to those who have been commenting and creating discussions. I started this channel back in 2015, really just intending to post that first video, which was an interview with Sheikh Hassan Farhan al-Maliki. A video which I still believe gives a very comprehensive view of some of the key problems in Islam as it is generally understood. The problems I'm referring to here are problems of content, not of interpretation, though those certainly exist as well. There are things within Islam as it is taught and preached by all the major sects and traditional schools of thought that raise serious concerns for anyone who hasn't allowed religion and religious reverence to sideline their basic humanity and reason. And it's this sidelining of natural core human principles and honest intellectual reasoning by misguided religious reverence that is, I believe, what keeps most religious people from recognizing the corruptions and distortions that have seeped into their own religions. And all religions, without exception, have suffered from such distortions. Those who can recognize and avoid them gain a truer understanding of the divinely revealed messages and can then experience a truly meaningful religious life. Islam is no different. Distortions and corruptions entered it so early on that they are now part of the very fabric of Islam, and are therefore very difficult to see for many devoted Muslims. Most of them think Islam is perfect. Even worse, most of them think that their own sect of Islam is perfect. So on the one hand we have what I have chosen to call inherited Islam, and on the other is your basic humanity and reason. The more passionately devoted and zealously religious you are, then the more these two forces will come into conflict within you. That conflict might actually just continue until the day you die and never be resolved, but if it is resolved, then the result is one of three possible conditions. The first is that your basic humanity breaks down in favor of your inherited Islam, and the most obvious example of that is the condition of terrorists and extremists such as those who have chosen to join ISIS and who are actually quite happy being with them. The second is that it's your acceptance of this inherited Islam that breaks down in favor of your humanity. An extreme example of that is the condition of many ex-Muslims, namely the total loss of confidence and faith in all religions and rejecting them completely. So, under the weight of your devotion and passion, either your belief in inherited Islam breaks down, or your humanity breaks down. Neither one necessarily has to break down all the way. Either one can break down piece by piece until a state of confused equilibrium is reached. But such a state of equilibrium will be at the expense of complete passion and total religious zeal to all aspects of inherited Islam. And I think this is actually the case of most religious Muslims. Let me try to clarify all of that with a simple, easy to grasp example. All forms of inherited Islam that I am aware of at least require that in a functioning, sovereign Islamic state the penalty for leaving Islam be death. This law of inherited Islam literally screams in the face of one's basic humanity and reason, not to mention it being a mockery of who God is. I really don't think it's possible to be completely and fully devoted to this law and also to keep your basic humanity and reason fully intact. Either you let that part of your humanity which finds it abhorrent die, beating it down with slogans like God knows best until it no longer troubles you, or you abandon that part of your inherited Islam. You can't have both. The third option is the lackluster, insincere route that's akin to cognitive dissonance, where you can try to convince yourself that those problems don't exist or aren't real problems. So for example, you can try to convince yourself that this apostasy law isn't really an apostasy law at all, It's a law of high treason against the state. But that's really just spin. And you can also spin many of the other problems that inherited Islam throws out against your humanity in a similar way, and then you can just carry on living your life. But, as I said before, that state of equilibrium or cognitive dissonance comes at the expense of real sincerity and complete devotion. You'd have to be at least a little bit disingenuous or ignorant. But there is a fourth way that the sincerely devoted can take, and that is to realize that this inherited Islam, no matter the sect, is not the same as the Islam of God. What I mean by that is that it isn't the same as the Islam of the Qur'an. And if it isn't the same as the Islam of the Qur'an, then it also isn't the same as the Islam of the Prophet. And hence, all the problems that you can see and recognize within Islam are problems in inherited Islam, not Qur'anic Islam. Now that doesn't mean that Qur'anic Islam is completely in line with modern Western sensibilities. It isn't. But don't assume that what is currently viewed as right and correct in the West is de facto right and correct. Even though the West is currently at the peak of intellectual and technological human achievements, the same can't be said of its morality, which has suffered considerably. Now, if you can see the differences between inherited Islam and Qur'anic Islam, and if you are also willing to openly talk about the problems in inherited Islam and show that they are un-Qur'anic, then you will naturally become a target for the defenders of each and every sect of inherited Islam. So if you are someone like that, then I'm hoping we can come together to form a community of sorts around this channel. A community to discuss those problems and to try to sift out inherited Islam from Qur'anic Islam. I certainly don't have all the answers and I'm still learning. The message of this channel is quite simple. It is that Islam needs to be freed from the many influences throughout history that have changed it. Influences that have surrounded the Qur'an and act as a barrier to it. The Qur'an needs to take center stage in Islam and everything else needs to be judged accordingly. At the moment, that just isn't the case. No sect of Islam will admit it, of course, but that's just part of the nature of sects and organized religions. Once their beliefs and dogmas have been ingrained into them, then nothing will convince them that those dogmas are wrong or unsound in any way. It doesn't matter how many convincing arguments you bring forward, even if they recognize them as correct, they just will not accept them. Judaism as an organized religion will never admit that Jesus was the Messiah, and Christianity will never admit that Muhammad was a prophet. There's just too much at stake for them as ideologies and as mass organizations for either of those ideas to be seriously entertained, let alone accepted. As evidence of this trait in organized religions, think of what the Qur'an says about the much simpler matter of the direction of prayer, the Qibla, for mankind being towards the sacred mosque in Mecca, a place of worship which was set up by Abraham, the forefather and grand patriarch of all three religions. The relevant verses are in chapter 2 from 144 to 145. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قد نرى تقلب وجهك في السماء فلنولينك قبلة ترضاها فول وجهك شطر المسجد الحرام. We have seen your face turn towards the heaven, so we will turn you towards a direction that will please you. So turn your face towards the sacred mosque for prayer. وحيث ما كنتم فولوا وجوهكم شطرا وإن الذين أوتوا الكتاب ليعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وما الله بغافل عما يعملون. And wherever you all may be, then turn your faces towards it. And truly those who were given the book know that it is the truth from their Lord, and God is not unaware of what they do. وَلَئِنْ أَتَيْتَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ بِكُلِّ آيَةٍ مَا تَبِعُوا قِبْلَتَكَ وَمَا أَنْتَ بِتَابِعٍ قِبْلَتَهُمْ وَمَا بَعْضُهُمْ بِتَابِعٍ قِبْلَةَ بَعْضٍ. And even if you were to bring to those who were given the book every sign, they still would not follow your direction of prayer, nor are you to follow their direction, nor do they follow the direction of one another. وَلَئِنِ اتَّبَعْتَ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِنَّكَ إِذًا لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. And if you were to follow their desires after the knowledge that has come to you, you would be, in that case, one of the unjust. These verses are basically saying that the people of the book in the Prophet's time and vicinity know that praying towards the sacred mosque in Mecca is a truth from their Lord. But even then, and even if Muhammad were to bring to them every sign, they just will not accept it or admit it. Of course, these verses won't be a proof for you if you aren't a Muslim, but you can still examine the idea behind them, which is that established religions and sects take on a life of their own and just do not repeal their essential dogmas no matter what. Interestingly, and just as a side note, the Qur'an's solution with regards to cooperation with the Jews and Christians is very inclusive and practical. The Prophet Muhammad is commanded to call them to what is already common ground. This very interesting proclamation that the Prophet is commanded to make and which isn't given enough exposure by Muslims is in Surah 3, verse 64. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله. Say, O people of the book, come to a common word between us and you, that we worship none but God. ولا نشرك به شيئا, and that we associate nothing with him in idolatry. ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله, and that we do not take one another as lords besides God. That's the invitation. Then the verse finishes off with the following instruction to Muslims. فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَقُولُوا اشْهَدُوا بِأَنَّا مُسْلِمُونَ. But if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we at least have submitted. Please take note, all you Islamophobes and Muslims alike, that the verse does not say, but if they turn away, then slay them wherever you find them, or anything like that. But what's really interesting about this verse is that Muhammad's status as a prophet or messenger is not part of this common word that the Qur'an is calling them to. That's obvious, right? Because belief in Muhammad's prophethood isn't common ground. To put it bluntly, in order for Jews and Christians to be part of this common word, they do not need to concede or admit that Muhammad was a prophet. Also, look at the last phrase which says, but if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we at least have submitted. Literally, that we are Muslims. This seems to imply that if they don't turn away from the common word, then they too have submitted, i.e. they too are Muslims. So this verse can be used to support the idea that Islam in the Qur'an is really just monotheism, and that all monotheists are Muslims, whereas the specific followers of each prophet are called believers. But anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. The trait of organized religions not budging on their established dogmas isn't something unique to the people of the book. It exists within Muslims too. Because in the end, it really comes down to two things. To our common human nature, which is one and the same, and to the common enemy of all humanity, Shaitan. Individuals and independent communities can still be reached, but not if they are trying to represent and uncritically defend their sect or religion. They must first shift out of that defensive mindset. So whenever you sense that someone is acting like a defense lawyer for their sect or religion, then it's often useless to continue a polemic discussion with them. My advice is not to waste too much time. With regards to Muslims, the Qur'an mentions the one and only complaints of the Messenger of Allah on the Day of Judgment, which is that his nation has abandoned the Qur'an. وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّ إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. And the Messenger will say, O my Lord, my people have abandoned this Qur'an. The word translated as abandoned, mahjura, comes from the same root as migration, hijrah, which is to leave one place for another. And that's exactly what is meant by abandoning the Qur'an. It isn't that you just abandon the Qur'an aimlessly, it's that you abandon it for something else, such as hadiths and the proclamations and dogmas of sects. This verse is prophecy. It has been, is being, and will continue to be fulfilled until the last hour. It is a huge and damning complaint against this nation. And of course, no single sect will ever admit to being complicit in abandoning the Qur'an. Each sect will always lay the blame on the others and say that this verse is talking about them, not us. So we shouldn't be under any illusions that Muslims as a whole will realize and correct this mistake, any more than that the people of the book will start praying towards Mecca. They won't. What then is the point of a channel like this? Why bother? Well, because the goal isn't to change the largest number of people possible. The goal is to explain the message as clearly as possible. Just as Allah has said to the Prophet, إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ, you are only responsible for the clear deliverance of the message. Clear deliverance and clear speech was the only responsibility of the Prophets. All of their other duties fell under that grand responsibility, and it's that tradition that we should try to follow. So coming back to the purpose of this video and this channel, the work of Sheikh Hassan Farhan al-Maliki is the clearest and most precise and detailed and comprehensive body of work that I have seen surrounding this topic. It's a body of work that 1. Tries to systematically separate what we have chosen to call inherited Islam from Qur'anic Islam, and 2. Aims to identify the causes and events in history that led to the predominance of the inherited Islam over the Qur'anic Islam. So a lot of the work and information that I will be presenting on this channel will be from him. And for those of you who are as concerned as I am, you should know that as of the recording of this video, he is still being held in prison in Saudi Arabia. Please do keep him in your prayers and try to spread awareness of his situation. I especially encourage the Americans among you, as American public opinion is one of the few things that can influence the Saudis and may help to have him released. He has now been in prison for over 9 months and is being forgotten, which is a real tragedy. The body of work he has made public on YouTube alone is enormous, let alone his numerous articles and books. I might make a separate video to give you an overview of what he has put out. But just as an example, he has a program where he re-examines and corrects the biography of the Prophet using the Qur'an. This program has now run into 5 seasons with 30 half-an-hour episodes per season. In this program alone, he has provided many crucial insights. I would really love to bring that program to the English-speaking world, and that's just one example of many. Up until now, I have just been translating some of his short clips and videos. I've been trying to choose those that were most beneficial and accessible, and which make what I think are currently the most important and salient points. But translating videos is painstakingly difficult work, and it takes me at least a very long time, and is also very difficult to do well. I spend a lot of time, maybe too much time in fact, trying to make them as accurate and natural as possible, but I still find many flaws later on, so that's one issue. But mostly I just don't have as much time as I would like to dedicate to this project, and even if I had much more free time, it's simply not practical for me to try to translate over 5,000 hours worth of video. So, as recommended by a friend, I am now adding podcasts and voiceovers to this channel. I will still be translating videos as I have been doing, but I'm hoping I'll be able to deliver more content more regularly by adding podcasts as well. So rather than directly translating a single video, I will try to collate relevant information and ideas primarily from Sheikh Hassan, but also from others, and from my own observations, thoughts and conclusions, and then I'll try to present them as clearly as possible. My video editing skills are close to nil, so if any of you would like to help by creating animations, intros, logos, banners or anything else that can help to give this channel its own unique character and visuals, then please do contact me. All help is appreciated, and as I said, I really would like to create a community around this channel. But what I really need is time. I would like to be able to spend at least a solid year trying to get as much done as possible. So with that in mind, I've decided to try crowdfunding through Patreon. If you can support this channel in that way, then please do so. The only special perk I will be offering for Patreon supporters is to set up a WhatsApp, Telegram or Signal group where we can all discuss relevant issues together. Alternatively, if a one-off donation is more to your liking, then you can also do that either through the PayPal Me link or the normal PayPal donations link, both found below and on this channel's About section. People generally prefer to give one-off donations even if they are much larger than to subscribe to small regular monthly donations. But if you would like to support this channel and are undecided, then I would like to ask you to donate monthly through Patreon, even if it's just $1 per month, which is just $12 for the year. The reason is that the more Patreons a channel has, then the easier it is to attract new patrons. As I do have a day job and my goal through Patreon is to gain enough support to be able to take a year off, all the donations that I receive will go into a separate account solely for that upcoming year, or to pay for channel specific purchases such as a good podcasting mic, or to pay graphic designers. So that's basically the plan. If anything changes, I'll be sure to let you all know. I already have a list of topics I want to cover, but if any of you have any pressing issues that you would like to see discussed, analysed or clarified, issues that pertain to the overall message of this channel, then please add them in reply to the dedicated comment that is pinned at the top of the comment section below. Thank you again for all your support and patience. If you believe the ideas presented in the videos on this channel are important, then please do share them with friends, family and on social media. Don't just keep them to yourself. There are many Muslims out there who are looking for a way out of the dilemmas that their traditional understanding of Islam has put them in, and the only sure way out is through the Qur'an. Thank you again, and until next time, may God bless you. Wallahu khayrun hafidhan wa huwa arhamur rahimin. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.